You're watching GTV, and now it's time for this afternoon's edition of Children's GTV. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Children's GTV. Okay, now, you may remember last time that when I was out into the garden last time, so yeah, it was a bit kind of an experience for me, but I am so glad to be back here in the lounge again. Yeah, because back in the warmth now, yeah, thank God for that. So anyways, now, here's our first programme of the day on Children's GTV, and now it's time to go and see Spotty Man and, dare I say it, Super Ted. Whoosh!
This is a story about an ordinary teddy bear. When he was made, they found something wrong with him and threw him away like a piece of rubbish into an old dark storeroom.
Right, and that was Super Ted. Well, mind you, Super Ted sure is a bit of a superhero because he always saves the day. Oh yeah, with his companion, Spotty Man, you know, who goes by the name of Spotty Rockets, you know, the one that goes whoosh. So, anyways, away from Super Ted now, and on to another bear who has been very silent for all those years. So now, on Children's GTV, it's now time for Sooty and Co. Oh, and we've already had the Sooty show this morning, by the way. So yeah, here's Sooty and Co.
Hey, ho, it's Sooty and Co. Everybody say hello! There's Sooty and Sweet, and of course Sue. Little cousin Scamp. There'll be fun galore with the terrible four. Just you wait and see. It's Sooty and Company. Sooty and Company.
Yes, sir, we do sell chain. We've got lots of it somewhere. It's just a case of laying one's hands on it.
Lose control's what I say. Let's not lose control's the best way. Let's not lose control today or any day. Let's not lose control's what I say.
And that was Sooty and Co. Yeah, well, manning the shop is always very hard work for such a little bear. But with his friends, but with his friends, Sue, Sweep, and little cousin Scampy, and even Matthew to help out. But sometimes Matthew always the one that steals the show the most. And don't ask why, because he was the one who only said in the first ever episode, "You cannot be serious, man!" That's the bit that some people have found it funny. So anyways, away from Manchester of Sooty and Co. and moving on to another programme that is specially designed for younger viewers in mind. It's Tots TV. And here we go. Tots TV. Yeah, well, they sure like going on some sudden adventures when out of the house, and sometimes they even like to have adventures in the house as well. So, I wouldn't have believed that there was a magic house there. Yeah, because otherwise the Tots wouldn't have lived there if it wasn't for any puppeteers whatsoever. So, anyways, now, moving on to the next programme here on Children's GTV now, it's time for Bear Behaving. Oh, no! Bear Behaving badly, everybody. behaving badly. Oh, no. Never mind. Yeah, just forget about this outro thing for a while. Now, as I was saying, that was Bear... And that was Ned the Bear. And anyways, that's Bear behaving badly to you and me. So anyways, moving on to, from the older category for the moment, and moving on to the younger side. And here we go with the first programme out of the younger ones. It's time for the Teletubbies. Well, uh-oh to some people. Now, away from the Teletubbies dome, or that Homer Simpson that said that when it comes to being trapped in a dome, when he said, dome! Get it? That's what is known as a dome. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why the Teletubbies had a dome like this, in the shape of a semicircle. Well, whatever that is. Now anyways, as I was saying, moving away from Teletubbies, and now moving on to something more a bit arts and crafts like. And with Neil Buchanan, it's time for Art Attack.
This is an art attack? This is an art attack. This is Art Attack!
Now, away from Art Attack with Neil Buchanan, and did you know that Neil Buchanan also had a cousin called Smarty Artie? Could you believe that? The cousin of Neil Buchanan? Well, because speaking of which, coming up next on Children's GTV right now, it's time for Zap. I didn't mean that! As I was saying, now, it's time for today's episode. And now it's time. And now it's time for Zap, the comic book, not the way that I get zapped. But anyway, enjoy. Was alright, who sapped me this time? Not me. Well, somebody's lying. Not me. Anyway, I'll deal with this later. So, anyways, as I was saying, that was Zap, the TV comic. The one with Cuthbert, Lily and Smarty Artie. And now moving on to the calmer side of the Toy Town now. And here we go with Noddy in his Toyland Adventures.
Noddy, the little man with the red and yellow car. What tomorrow brings for Noddy, Noddy, Noddy.
And that was Noddy's Toyland Adventures. Well, mind you, I'm so glad that Noddy has found all the things that he has found in the end and returning them to their owners. And would you believe that even sometimes Noddy needs some help from big ears. Mind you, I certainly don't have big ears like that. Especially if they don't wiggle about. Not like the one that I get Okay, now, as I was saying, now coming up next on Children's GTV now, it's time for today's episode of Postman Pat.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. Boom, 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 dee-dum, dum, dee-dum, boom, boom, rum, boom, boom, ba-dum, boom, boom, boom.
And that was Postman Pat. Well, mind you, he sure likes to deliver post to all the people in Greendale. So, anyways, moving from one van to another motor vehicle, which is also a car, which is an Austin, but basically otherwise known as Gumdrop. And that's our programme coming up now. Gumdrop. Well, mind you, Gumdrop is a car that takes people out anywhere. Oh, and moving on to the next programme, which it'll be the Wombles, in which today's episode, when Bungo gets stuck up a tree. Oh my goodness! What are we going to do? I mean, we get to. And if you don't know if he's going to be rescued or not, find out as you watch today's episode of the Wombles. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? That was the Wombles, but I'm also glad that Bungo has got out of a tree now. Yeah, mind you, that was a bit of a hilarious episode when he's still stuck up there. But luckily, well, the Wombles did help Bungo to get down from a tree eventually, as otherwise they would have called 999 for the fire brigade. Oh, and of course, that we'll be having Fireman Sam, speaking of which, later on. So right now on Children's GTV, it's time for the next programme, and that will be Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. Right, take it away, boys. That was Thomas and Friends. Well, mind you, I'm all chuffed up about it right now. Yeah, because I know that sometimes presenting programmes really is hard work. But don't you worry. But we'll still have some Fireman Sam later on. We'll have it later on. So right now on Children's GTV, it's time for today's episode of Chuckle Vision. And as Mr. Bryn would say, to me, to you, to me, to you, to me. To me, to you, to me, to you, and here you go. Directors, who sacked me? Sorry, it was me all along. Oh. Right, whilst I go and deal with that, don't be director. Here's today's episode of Chucklefish. Right, I'm going to get you. was Chuckle Vision. Yeah, they came all the way from Rotherham. Yeah, that's where they live. Oh, and I do like to apologise that about the director sacked me. I already found out who sacked me all along. Oh, yeah, and of course, stay tuned for the public information about road safety with Super Ted. Now, I know we've already had Super Ted first of all this morning, but it'll be a public information before we go. So now on to the next programme, and also the last would be Fireman Sam. And I wonder what Fireman Sam is up to. Let's go find out. Was Fireman Sam. Well, mind you, he sure likes to help everyone keep safe, especially that he had to deal with the fire in Pontypandy when things go wrong, and the reason why, because of a certain naughty boy named Norman Price. Norman! That's sort of it, because that's from Dennis. I'll give you something. I'll give you smell nice. Yeah, that's just from chemistry set, by the way. Now, anyways, now, before we conclude children's GTV at the moment, now, before we go, here is the public information about road safety. And you probably guessed it, Super Ted once more. Whoosh! And over to the road safety.
This is a story about an ordinary teddy bear. When he was made, they found something wrong with him and threw him away like a piece of rubbish into an old dark storeroom. Then, from outer space, a spotty man brought him to life with his cosmic dust. He took him to a magic cloud where Mother Nature gave him special powers. That bear became Super Ted.
Spotty's not very good at video games.
I've done it again, Super Ted.
He finds it easier to cross the universe than cross a road. Let me show you how to do it, Spotty.
Oh, all right.
There you are. I've won.
Well, that's not fair. That's the 503rd time you've won. You must be cheating.
No, I'm not. I just know the rules about crossing the road.
You don't need rulers to cross the road.
Not rulers, rules. First of all, you've got to find a safe place to cross, like a pelican crossing.
Don't be silly. There aren't any pelicans on the planet Spot.
Then you must find somewhere where you can see clearly both ways.
You mean like this?
That's right, Spotty. Then you mustn't stand too close to the road.
All right.
Then you must look both ways and listen carefully, because you might be able to hear traffic coming even if you can't see it.
Yes, I've got that.
Then, when it's all clear, walk carefully across the road, still looking and listening for traffic.
Like this. Hooray! I've won!
Hey, Spotty, that's not fair. I wasn't playing. Anyway, I'm still leading by 503 games to 1.
Spotty! Look, Super Ted, there's Blotch. Blotch! Blotch!
No, Spotty, don't!
Great moves of
Spotty, I'd better say my secret magic word.
Oh, thank you, Super Ted. But I was quite safe. Spotty rockets have the best brakes in the universe.
You really shouldn't have gone rushing across the road like that, Spotty.
No, you should have looked for a zebra crossing.
Ugh, zebra crossing? I'm not walking on anything with stripes.
Oh, Spotty.
Super Ted, where are we going?
To the planet Earth.
Well, that's a long way to go just to teach Spotty how to cross the road.
Yes, but it's the best place to learn. Earth has the worst traffic in the galaxy.
Yes, it's got the worst people in the galaxy, too.
Now, Spotty, first find somewhere safe to cross where you can see clearly both ways. Not behind a bus, Spotty.
Oh, sorry, Super Ted.
When you're ready to cross, don't stand too close to the edge of the road.
That's better, Spotty.
Then you must look both ways and listen. If there's anything coming, you mustn't try and cross. Then when you're sure that nothing is coming, walk carefully across the road.
Don't run, Spotty. You might fall over.
And all the time you must look and listen for traffic until you are safely on the other side. There you are, Spotty. Can you remember all that?
Oh, yes, Super Ted. Spotty brains are the biggest in the universe.
I think Spotty heads are the biggest in the universe, too. Well, if you remember those rules, you will be safe crossing the road anywhere in the universe. Remember, I can't be there to save you, especially on the planet Earth.
That was a public information film of Super Ted with road safety and all. Yeah, I was just doing the same thing as the Beeb used to say that at the end of the day of BBC One and BBC Two. So anyway, so that's probably about it for this afternoon's Children's GTV, and I was so glad to be back in the lounge again. Yeah, because you see, a garden was just a bit of a one-off because all the mess that some people cause. Let's just say. Now, anyways, now it's time for me, George Buxton, to sign off this time. And it's time for me to say bye-bye, everybody. See you again soon. And, of course, I will see you tomorrow afternoon. And No Hair Bear will be there too. And, of course, on Friday, No Hair Bear will be here too. So I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.